you. So I was going to touch on two things, but I'm going to start off with talking about the mirror. And the mirror is everything outside of yourself, everything that you interact with, whether it be people, your environment, and so on and so on, and your reaction to your reality. How does particular people make you feel? How do they make you feel? Whether it be your parents, whether it be friends, whether it be the people you work with, would you say that there are particular people in your life that make you feel a particular way that isn't favorable to yourself? And then to look closer in the mirror would be to look closer within self and having the self-awareness to realize and to acknowledge why you feel the way you feel when these people show up in your life. Most of the time we feel a particular way because the values that we hold so close to us have been reflected back onto you that isn't in resonance. So let's say, for example, you are well-mannered, but then you interact with someone that has no manners to what you hold as being having good manners. So automatically you feel like, you feel hard done by because they're not meeting you where you meet yourself or you meet other people. I used to feel this way. I definitely used to feel this way. I used to feel this way if, someone doesn't meet me where my values are, what I hold to a high level. And I always used to just think, that's just them. Like, I just don't like them as a person. But because I've made so many changes in life, I realize that we can all change. I realize that I give people the empathy, I give people the opportunity, I give people the grace, because there's always going to be a catalyst in your life that is going to enable change. Whether you learn from these lessons that you have in life or not, then that's a personal thing that you have to deal with yourself. That's a personal problem. It's a personal preference. But that personal problem can also be your personal perseverance. This is where you can make so much transformative change throughout your life. The mirror is always there. How do you feel when maybe your values or maybe the things that you hold so highly and so close to your heart isn't being met? Does this trigger you? Does this anger you? Or maybe does this make you feel happy? Does this make you feel challenged? Does this make you aware of whatever the situation is and allow you to go deeper within self, or even find ways in which you're able to manage that feeling? So change creates change. but it's also about being self-aware and accountable for the way you react to maybe something that isn't meeting you, where your values are respected, let's say, respected. Maybe it's about being the example. Maybe it's about being called out on the things that maybe you speak so, maybe what you're preaching. How do you feel when it's being reflected back onto you? What can you do to allow yourself to be in a state in which you're able to actually acknowledge what's been said, to hear what's been said, to feel what's been said, instead of being reactive? Something that I've learned as well through my own experiences, which I touched on before, is that through death, I always used to think, oh, well, you know, if there's a problem, let's talk it out and let's hash it out now. It doesn't matter who it's with, it could be anybody. But I'm in a place now where I realize, well, there's not necessarily an urgency to fix a particular thing. I may offer and open up the channel of communication, but if that's not been received in a particular state that I would like it to be in, then I don't need to push for that thing. It's all about choices. It's all about acknowledgement, and it's all about how would you feel if that thing doesn't get resolved. And for me, I would definitely say I'm in such a more calmer, more peaceful state than I've ever been, and I know that this keeps continuing to increase over time. Having more grace, have more patience, but it's also about being self-aware enough to be like, not allowing your patience to be abused, because this is a journey. This is a journey. This is a personal journey, an individual journey, and you have the power, autonomy to connect and communicate with whoever you wish to. So if you're in a job that you hate because of the people that you work with, it's also about looking at yourself to be like, okay, well, is it the people or is it me? And a lot of the time in this world, we like to push the blame on other people, and we don't like to be accountable. Whereas for me, I've definitely been practicing more accountability, even more so than I have before, because you get to choose. You choose. Let's say, for example, you're with someone. Let's say you're a woman and you're with a guy, but your track record has been that the guys that you've been with have always cheated on you, but you're just running to the next relationship and the next relationship because you want the connection, but you haven't spent enough time with self. So being accountable would be spending time with self enough to maybe not be running to another relationship after another relationship. Maybe it's about spending more time and not just jumping into a particular thing. Maybe getting to know that person a little bit more. If it's a repeated pattern, then there's a repeated lesson to be learned that you've not yet learned. So instead of blaming the guy for cheating, you could also blame yourself for jumping into a relationship, maybe not spending enough time. Maybe you've been not manipulated, but maybe you've just been swayed with the words that this person, this individual uses. Maybe you just run into what looks good on the outside, but not really spending enough time on what's going on the internal. So if you're all about the outside, the looks and all these sorts of things, then that would show you that the mirror would be you haven't spent enough time on looking within. within self, not within them necessarily, but within yourself. So it's about being accountable and not necessarily blaming yourself for why they cheated on you, but holding yourself accountable to be like, okay, well, I didn't like that feeling of being cheated on. I'm going to spend some time by myself to heal through this thing and not just jump into a relationship, because actually when you're jumping from one to another, the reason why you're probably jumping from one to another is because not only are you feeling lonely, but you're also in a vulnerable state where it's like you're just latching onto the next best thing, and your initial thing of the initial bar that you had in what you want becomes lower and lower and lower and lower because you're not getting what you initially wanted. So you're just taking whatever's available, and that also comes with lack of self-worth, because now you've just reduced the bar and you're reducing your level of self-worth. So it's always a mirror. Everything is a mirror, and the moment you realize that everything's a mirror and you're accountable for every single thing that happens in your life, and you're self-aware about everything that happens in your life. So as long as you're self-aware and you're accountable, you're always going to grow, and that's just the bottom line. And that's all I got to say today. So I hope that the words that I've shared with you today has given you some guidance, or maybe given you an answer to maybe something that you've not looked at before. But just remember, it's all about accountability and awareness. And when you have one or the other, you're already halfway there. And then when you've got both of these things, there's always going to be growth. And I'll leave you with those words. And have a wonderful day. I'll catch you in the next one.